yeah, what?
The other day when I saw you in the garden, were you digging up that pickle berry?
No, stuff that goes bad, I put in my garden. Works out good. Well, now call the meeting to order. Thank you very much for attending. Record of attendance, I guess we have. We're all set. Any conflicts of interest by any of the members of the utility? Hearing none. Approval of the agenda. The agenda has been circulated. There are 5 items. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? No? Seconded. Moved by Councillor McIsaac, seconded by Deputy Mayor McLeod. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Carried. The first item we have, ladies and gentlemen, is the budget for the utility for the 2014-15 year. It's in hard copy because we have a little computer glitch. Shows the revenue and the expenditures of the utility. As you can see, the utility in 13-14 finished with a surplus, which is quite nice. We've been very progressive the last number of years, and it's working quite nicely. You will notice a bit of a, in 14-15, there is a budgeted surplus of $3,648. Maybe, Jeff, did you want to discuss this? So I'll turn it over to Jeff, and he'll review it with you.
Okay, so the budget is available here in hard copy. So about the budgeting process for the water utility. The utility is regulated by the Utility Review Board, and so the rates are set for us. We don't set them. The last rate review was a few years ago, and so the rates that we would be going forward under this budget would be the same rates as were charged to our customers last year. You can see, as the chairman pointed out, the rates that we have will leave us with a very slim surplus for 2014-15. And it may be, as we've talked about, I think at an earlier meeting, it may be coming upon the time when we may want to do another rate review. But that's, excuse me, that's something we may want to discuss with our consultants. If they agree, then proceed to do a rate study. So the budget is fairly stable, and it is several pages, so I'm not going to suggest that we pour through it tonight. Our Director of Finance and our utility operator will be with us next week at the Committee of the Whole meeting, and it might be appropriate to take the budget, review it, and at next week's meeting, ask any questions of them, and we can have a utility meeting again within a few weeks to consider approving the budget. But as I say, the rates themselves, in terms of what our customers pay, will not change in 2014-15 in time for, I guess, the beginning of the year. It is possible to do a rate study and catch part of the late part of the year, but effectively that won't matter to the budget. So your revenue is set to the extent that consumption patterns remain stable. It's a matter of, on the expense side, managing the expenses. And on the back of the budget document, there are 3 pages of capital recommendations, and I'm not sure if these were discussed with the chairman or not, but again, these are things that we can discuss with the water operator at next week's meeting. There is an item in the 14-15 capital budget that is later on this agenda for your consideration. The capital revenues for the water utility come from within the rates. So the way it works is when we get a rate approved from the Utility Review Board, they require us to rate for our amortization, a practice that we also carry through in the town of Yarmouth itself. So by doing that, there are monies for capital replacements and capital works as part of the rates.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Just on the capital budget side, folks, and again, this is a question for the CAO. Oops. Oh, Danny, sorry, Councilor. I'm sorry, no, okay, no, you go right ahead. You're on.
Just a quick question for the CAO, if you can answer this. The treatment plant, the life expectancy of the treatment plant, and there are provisions for money put aside for that. What's the life? How many more years do we have? Is it a 20, 25-year or 30-year treatment plant where we have to upgrade? And if we do have to upgrade it, is there monies put aside in our capital projects for this?
CAO?
I can't respond specifically with what the overall life of the plant would be. The plant is about 10 years old now. There are elements or parts of the plant, I'm sure, that will wear out long before the overall plant is in need of replacement. So to answer your question about a reserve, I'd have to check with the Director of Finance to find out if we have cash in reserve, but that's part of the purpose of the amortization fund.
Yes.
Is that some monies would be available every year for either repairs within the distribution system or in the treatment.
Yeah.
treatment
But
plant
I
itself.
guess, Jeff, what I was looking at is if there's 5 years left, let's just say, and before we have to upgrade to a different rate due to what government regulations requires us to do, what I want to know, are we putting enough money away to be doing this to meet the standards that could be or probably will be coming in? And is there any big overall work that we have to do to lifing the life expectancy of that facility to keep it up to perhaps another 20 or 25 years or whatever? I guess that's the information I was looking for. And I thought it was older than 10 years old, to tell you the truth. I thought it was older than that, but maybe it's not. But if we could get the information, if you don't have that information, perhaps at the committee of the whole next meeting, just a brief from our engineer or whoever can just fill us in on that, it'd be great.
Thank you. Just a notice to the CAO again, this can be next week, I don't expect an answer tonight. For the capital budget for the 2015-16 fiscal year, oops, sorry, wrong year, flipped ahead. For the 2014-2015 fiscal year, I'm sorry, we have sandblast, prime, and paint the interior of the airport reservoir. I thought we had just done the exterior that one year. That is a bit of a concern because we had some huge pressure issues when that happened. Maybe Mr. Ernst can, we got to really look at that because we don't want to go through that nightmare again. When we had that huge pressure issue, we did it right in the height of herring season, and we had some problems there. So I don't know whether you can address that, or maybe it should be addressed on how we can do that with the least amount.
I can address that. Yeah, we can discuss that next week, but the experience I think you're referring to also, it coincided, if you recall, with the Pleasant Street project, which took out of play a major pipe source of water for the Stars Road area, and so it did cripple to some extent the water supply. I don't expect, obviously, that would be the case this time, that we would lose that line, but certainly we should discuss with Mr. Ernst the timing of that and what his plans are.
And the other question is why didn't we do the interior at the same time as the exterior? Because we drained the tank, I believe, or close to drained the tank for that one. Because if you're going to be doing an interior, that's going to be, I'm just making sure that we have the mechanisms in place that we have least disruption to our users. That's all I'm suggesting. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that's a valid question for Mr. Ernst. It may be that was their opportunity to inspect the inside, but we can talk to Mr. Ernst about that, the answer.
Good. So hearing that, anybody get any questions on the budget? Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, you've answered one of my questions just now. Thank you. Would you please explain the SCADA or SCADA system to me? What is that? What does that stand for? Is it an acronym or?
Yep. I'll let the CIO address that.
And what is a DMA? Please and thank you.
I was good on SCADA system, but DMA is.
Okay, we'll take number one first. I'll be happy with that.
So SCADA, the SCADA system is a communication system. So I know, for instance, on the water treatment side, on the wastewater side, we use SCADA system between the pumping stations and the computers that the operator has. So if there's a failure, there's an immediate communication to the computer says, whoa, something's failed. And so we're able to act on it right away. So this is, the SCADA here is the electronic link.
All
What the
right.
DMA is that's being linked up, I don't know, I'd have to defer to Mr. Ernst.
We can find that out later. Thank you very much. As you're explaining it to me, what came in my mind was I could see the motherboard on a transit system, like a train, and a rail trainway system. Does it work on the same principle?
No.
Okay.
I think
No,
maybe.
I'm happy I got one answer.
And
Thank
I
you.
may be totally out to lunch on this one, but I believe the DMAs are referring to the monitoring units that we put on the flow meters that we put on the different lines. Because I think, remember, we installed last year, I think it was last year, we put flow meters to get accurate readings of how much water was actually being pumped in the town and were coming in at key points and leaving.
Okay, so it would be
And,
some type of measure.
because these meters that we now have in place, I think, are manually checked, whereas before, if we do an electronic check, it would be a little bit better. So I think that's maybe it, but that may help. But we'll definitely have the answer for you, Councillor, no question. Yeah, that's the DM, the district meters, yeah. So, hey,
What
pretty
meters?
good. I actually know a little bit. Good.
What meters?
He said the DM stands for district meters, so I guess we are on the right track. Yeah,
Thank you
district
very
meters.
much.
Thank you, good question. Any further questions on the water utility budget? Hearing none. So just for direction, this is going to be for your review, and it'll be brought up at the Committee of the Whole next week, and then after that's over, we'll have a short utility meeting to get it done. Good, okay, thank you. Next item on our agenda tonight is the Lake George Forest Management Plan. You have before you a document that was the result of the research done by the Federation of Nova Scotia Woodlot Owners and the Mersey Tobiatic Research Institute. This was presented to the Watershed Advisory Committee earlier this month. This is a document that we've been waiting for some time. And what it is, in essence, is how we should be managing the forests around our watershed. There was a concern expressed by the previous utility members that a lot of the trees and growth around the utility are older trees. We were concerned what happens if we had a major storm, what would happen if we would get into a situation where a stand is affected by fire, et cetera, and how vulnerable it is. We engaged consultants to come in, and they prepared this incredible report. Your Watershed Advisory Committee met, and the Watershed Advisory Committee is recommending to the utility that we adopt this plan. It puts in place a 10-year plan that would have to be put in for implementation by staff, and it appears for all intents and purposes fairly doable, but it's something that we should definitely be moving on, because there is a concern, there is some old growth in some parts of the utility. So if you're comfortable in dealing with it tonight, we can, or we can hold it over till the meeting next week.
I'll make a motion that we accept the woodlot plan as presented.
Moved by Councillor Mooney, seconded by Councillor Dawes, or I should say Member Mooney and Member Dawes, that we adopt the whole concept of Lake George Forest Management Plan as presented by our consultants. We have a mover, seconder. Do we have any discussion? Question? Oh, sorry. Deputy Mayor.
Ken,
Yes, sir.
has staff gone over this, and are
Yeah, oh yes,
staff
Mr.
comfortable?
Oh yes, Mr. Ernst has gone through it, and he reviewed it with the Watershed Advisory Group. He has expressed some concerns on the implementation, but I think the idea we're simply adopting it, and then he's going to start working in a way of implementation of it and how we're going to be doing it. If you have an opportunity to go through it, it is an incredible plan. It really gives you a real good picture of what's going on.
Thank you.
Councillor Mooney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we had conversations with the previous government, with Minister McDonnell, about the forestry and the thickness out there and the density of the forest. And Minister McDonnell was quite excited that we were looking to implement this plan and do some forestry work in the Lake George area. And also, before we ever did that, we consulted with the group that is at Lake George, the stewards, as you call it, of the property, and they were quite excited about the initiative that the town took, and they were right there at the ground floor, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So we had buy-in right from the start from everybody, and I know it's going to protect our watershed, and it's something that we really need to do. And if if it takes, you know, it's going to be a 10-year project, but it's going to be well worthwhile.
Thank you, Councillor Mooney. Yeah, and just further, we to this, the understanding with the former Natural Resources Minister, and we got no reason to think this is not going to continue with our present Natural Resources Minister. The plan was, as well as the province owns considerable amount of Crown land out there, and they would be looking at our plan very favorably, as well as some of the private woodlot owners have been also watching this plan as well, waiting for it, and they would like to do a buy-in. Many of them have expressed interest to do a buy-in. So as we start our plan, private lot owners and plus the province will probably be piggybacking, and there'll be a mutual arrangement worked out there. So it will be, as Councillor Mooney pointed out, this is a 10-year plan, but it guarantees stability in the watershed of the growth forest, because if we lose a stand of those trees due to a windstorm, hurricane, or fire, it could have a negative impact on the water supply. So this is why we put the plan in to actually remove old growth trees, reforest, bring in with proper trees and shrubs to help maintain the land cover. Any further discussion on that? Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary? Carried. Water conservation initiatives. I'd just like to let you know that there has been some discussion as to how we can possibly look at people conserving water in the town of Yarmouth. Not that we have a water shortage, and the last thing we want to do is to cut off our nose. We want to sell water, not to preserve, but water is a valuable resource. So just to let you know, we are looking at some initiatives that we can put in place. Little things like people watching their toilet flow. We had an interesting article from a gentleman some recent resident commenting about water loss. 15,000 gallons a month is the equivalent to a leaky toilet, that's how much water you waste, or a leaky faucet could be up to 30,000 gallons a month. So it's amazing how much water you can lose very, very quickly. So just to let you know that it's something for planning for the 2014-15 budget, that we should be 15-16 budget, that we should be looking at some initiatives in that one. The water rate review. CAO has touched on this. We probably should look at initiating a water rate review. Our current study, I believe, is done in 2 years, I think. It's done. So to initiate a water rate review, the previous council did this, and it's about a 2-year process by the time we go through the start to finish, correct, CAO? So it's a while to go through. So I think it's something we should look at, and I'm kind of hoping maybe even tonight we can give direction to staff to maybe start the process going for a water rate review. It's a step. It's something. Basically it'll be 4 years down the road before we actually would implement any rate changes, because our rates have been set. But on the other hand, as you can see, budget lines being budget lines. Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make that a motion that we direct staff and to look at what you just said.
A water rate review, to undertake a water rate review.
A water rate review for the upcoming year, for this year. So we could get that on the go for.
Thank you, Councillor.
Probably perhaps for our next meeting, whatever, council meeting.
Do we have a seconder to that? Seconded by Councillor Mooney. Okay, good. Question's been called by Deputy Mayor MacLeod. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Carried. The last item is, and this was circulated, the water utility replacement of a 2009 Cat 420E backhoe. I'll turn that over to the CAO. Oops.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have a memo from the town engineer, and it talks about the backhoe that's owned by the water utility. The lease is up, and there is a guaranteed buyback on that, and it's due May 21st, so the backhoe will be going back. In order to replace the backhoe, the engineer is suggesting that we take advantage of the standing offer through the province of Nova Scotia, which what happens in those cases is the procurement office of the province of Nova Scotia goes through a public tendering process. They select acceptable bids, and then they have standing offers that are available to all the departments, to hospitals, to school boards, and also to municipalities. And so rather than redoing the work that they've done, the recommendation from the engineer, and I support this, is that we accept a backhoe, or we purchase a backhoe through the provincial standing offer. The backhoe would be provided by Atlantic Tractor and Equipment Limited, and the price is $101,925, plus the change in the Canadian dollar against the American dollar at the time of the order. So that is the recommendation.
Okay, Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Questions to the CAO. The document that you have, the items on there, is that the attachments that comes with that backhoe? Or did I read it wrong? Is it just a plain backhoe with no detachments? Just the backhoe?
Yeah, so the attachments that the engineer provided with his memo include the Schedule A from the standing offer, which includes different models of backhoes, excavators, loaders, and graders, and some of the specific attachments that you can get for the various models of excavators and so on. There are no attachments coming with the backhoe. It is a...
He wanted just what he's asking for, and that's it?
Exactly.
Okay, great, thank
So,
you.
yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Question's been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, carried. Any further business to come before the utility? Hearing none, we will have a meeting next week, the 22nd, either before or after the budget, after Committee of the Whole. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Committee of the Whole meeting. I begin by calling the meeting to order, and Linda will record the record of attendance. I would ask, are there any declarations of conflicts of interest? Hearing none, we'll move on and ask then for the approval of the agenda. First, moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. So the only item on our agenda is a presentation concerning the school, the Central School Advisory Council. So I would ask if there are speakers, if they want to come forth and identify themselves, and then go ahead. And I think it's fair to say that if any of our councillors have any questions, and we can have a good back and forth discussion. So go ahead.
Thank you for having us. My name is Michelle Doucette-Wallace, and I am the School Advisory Committee Chair for Yarmouth Central School. And our presentation this evening is in regards to the site selection of the new elementary school, the Yarmouth Elementary School. The Tri-County Regional School Board has begun a site selection process to determine a location for a new elementary school that will replace Arcadia, Yarmouth Central, and South. Our Yarmouth Central School Advisory Committee consulted with our school community in the fall of 2012 in order to review and respond to the impact assessment report that was prepared by the school board. At that time, several options were considered for the future of Central School. We concluded, in consultation with our school community, that the most reasonable, feasible, and advantageous option is a new building, centrally located elementary school on the north side of Parade Street, on the site of the former Yarmouth Junior High. Our Yarmouth Central SAC firmly believes a new centrally located elementary school on this site would provide the greatest advantages to all the students and their families, the numerous local organizations, support services that benefit from the proximity to the school, as well as the town and community of Yarmouth. An endorsement of this option from the Yarmouth Town Council would add a powerful voice to our efforts to promote the central location as the site of a new elementary school. We ask Council to consider the benefits of a new school centrally located within the town of Yarmouth. A new school in this location would offer more cost-effective, as it could incorporate the existing full-size, relatively new gymnasium that is already on site. The gymnasium, stage, and auditorium will allow the new school to host tournaments and other athletic, cultural, and social events in a central location near downtown businesses, restaurants, and accommodations. In addition, the existing parking, sports, and soccer field could be incorporated into the plan at a fraction of building a new one. Yarmouth Central already serves many students and families from South Centennial catchment area, primarily due to the French immersion program that was the first in Yarmouth Town. Many families from Yarmouth South currently have arrangements in place to allow their children to attend school in the center of town. At the same time, many students attending Arcadia School already take a bus to school. The parents of children attending Arcadia School who work and do business in the town of Yarmouth may experience little added inconvenience with a new centrally located school in town. Our preferred location is perhaps the most appropriate sized, serviced with existing utilities, piece of property already designated for school use within the town limits. There are many community organizations that benefit from the centrally located school site. Over the past few years, Central School has provided space in a convenient central location for such organizations as Juniper House, Yakro Summer Campsite, the VON, and Autism Nova Scotia. Moving the elementary school away from the central core or out of town would be seen as a tremendous loss to the clients, such as an organization like Juniper House and many other community outreach programs. Perhaps the most exciting advantage of having a centrally located school will be realized when the Early Years Center is introduced at Yarmouth Central School this September. Yarmouth Central is one of only 4 schools in Nova Scotia to be designated an Early Years Center, a new model of programs in partnership with the Department of Education. According to the Department of Education, Early Years Centers are to be located in or near schools, which make them accessible, convenient, and familiar places for families in the communities. This means a centrally located school is essential for its success. The center will partner with local organizations to offer programs and services such as early learning programs, early intervention, before and after school programs, regulated childcare, and parent education and resources. The programs and services offered through the center will support children, their families, and their communities by providing them access to resources that will help prepare children for school, while giving families the tools needed to ensure that children have the best start in life. The introduction of the Early Years Center at Yarmouth Central represents an unparalleled opportunity to our school, our students and their families, and our community. This opportunity cannot be overestimated. We have a chance to maximize this opportunity for our community by supporting a centrally located school. You may be aware there's a growing body of knowledge, especially in Nova Scotia, around the concept of community hub schools. A community hub is a central gathering place for people, their activities, and events. In the hub school concept, learning activities centered within the school contribute to a community development, and community activities in and around the school contribute to the student learning experience. A central location within the town of Yarmouth for a new elementary school would allow our students and community to take full advantage of the emerging evidence and base of knowledge around the hub schools. In conclusion, we would like to quote Margaret McCain, Chair of Margaret and Wallace McCain Family Foundation, that donated funding for the Early Years Center. It's a smart policy to use the assets Nova Scotians already own in a publicly funded school to expand opportunities for children and families. On behalf of the Yarmouth Central School Advisory Committee, we wish to thank you for considering our request to support a new building of an elementary school in the traditional school district of town. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Are there any questions or discussion with Michelle about her presentation? You were first.
I was first, yeah. Thank you,
ahead.
Michelle. I'm so glad the Southwest Health Authority already has a community or a communications officer, because you did a great job with that presentation tonight. Great job, and as everybody knows, and we've heard this, Fraser, every time when we were growing up about our father, why he built his house on Porter Street was because of Central School. And I think we're only going to have one opportunity to put a new facility in the town of Yarmouth. I don't think it's going to be in Yarmouth South, and we already have Meadowfields. I think if you read the Ray Ivany report, and you touched on it with Mr. McCain, we have to already use the assets that we have in our community. And that gym was, I think, $3 to $4 million. And I know Mr. Purdy's down there, and I know the dedication, the exuberance he had for athletic activities. And I know kids in South Centennial and kids at Centertown School are shortchanged when it comes to recreational facilities. And I think, you know, and with this new government we have, we're $15 billion in the hole. Every opportunity we have to save money is an opportunity that we have to take. And I think it's incumbent upon this council to support, I think, the Centertown School Committee. Like she said, like Michelle said in her presentation, it is a traditional hub for education in Yarmouth and Yarmouth County. And I think any opportunity is going to, instead of busing our kids out, we want to be the education cornerstone here in Yarmouth and Yarmouth Town. And I think supporting Centertown School Committee, supporting Centertown School, going to the government, asking them to build that facility in a traditional school space that already has existing facilities that they can use. We have to do it, and I'll support you 100%, and hopefully we can make that decision tonight at this committee of the whole. Is there a timeline, Richard or Michelle or Fraser or Jared or Natalie, that they're looking for commitments? I know it's still 4 or 5 years down the road, but what are they looking for? The provincial government or the school board? Okay, so we're still good, but yeah, and I think, Michelle, you hit it right on the nose. It's a traditional site. There's already facilities in place. I think it'll increase housing options in the Centertown core. More kids going to school there. The more they want housing, guess what? We get a ripple effect. We get higher taxes because the housing and the cost of housing will go up. So I support you 100%. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Phil. Councillor Danny, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, Michelle, I don't know if Fraser wrote this or not. I would like to think that he didn't, because if he did, it's some of his best writing he's ever wrote. But anyway, your presentation and reading of it was excellent.
Thank you.
It was great, and it makes all the sense in the world for the people in the town of Yarmouth to have this school in the town of Yarmouth. Now, it's South End, Centertown, Milton. As long as it's in the town of Yarmouth, it's great. I'm all for the central town. I'd be all for the South End. I'd be all for the Milton area, as I say, as long as it's being built in the town of Yarmouth rather than the outskirts of Yarmouth. It would be in an ideal place because there's, like you say in your presentation, there's already schools there. It'd be an easy fit, and it would complement like the other schools did in the town of Yarmouth. So I have no problem whatsoever agreeing with Councillor Mooney about supporting your association, and I look forward to working hard on your behalf to make sure that this happens. So thank you again, and thank you to your committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Danny. I understand that this is just for the group in front of us to present their point of view. There won't be any decision or recommendation coming from this meeting.
We have go ahead.
Ken, Councillor Ken.
I really think I agree with both Councillor Mooney and Councillor McIsaac. I really feel something should be coming out of this meeting. I think we should be endorsing their presentation, and it should be, by council. The Central School is probably, I've got deep roots with it, being a neighbor of Central School, but also working with them on the breakfast program, as Jared and Cetra know. It's got a school with a heart. It's a school that has a very strong parent base, a very strong community base. South Centennial is the same. They have a very strong base, a strong community base. But at issue is here is that a school site has to have a blueprint. There has to be a certain amount of square feet. There has to be a certain amount of land available. There's a lot of criteria for it. And I would suggest, Mr. Chair, that the site that Central School is proposing meets that criteria. And that land is already assembled. I think Michelle has made excellent points that we have a $2 million gym that I remember working on that project with Clifford Hood years ago that we put in. That building, that's a beautiful gym. I mean, it does need a little bit of a retrofit, but there you have a $2 million asset sitting right there, and that's money that's a saving to the taxpayers. And as Councillor McIsaac always says, there's only one taxpayer. You know, you pay at 3 levels, but there's only one of us doing it. So for us not to endorse Central School recommendation, I think is totally wrong. My fear is we're losing now, and I mean, we did a swap with the school board where the grade 9s come into town and the grade 7 and 8s children are bused outside of town, you know, to Maple Grove. I would really hate to see a situation, and I can't think of a site in town where that amount of property is available, plus the asset is available, that I'd hate to see us saying, well, you know, let's go out of town, and we're going to be busing all of our children from grades primary to 8 to a location remote. I think we should work very hard and lobby very hard for that location, because it is definitely a point. The third thing that Michelle has made an excellent point is it will give us that drive in the downtown. It really follows the Ivany recommendations to a T. We're using an existing asset. And not only are we using an asset, Mr. Chair, but I see those children from Central School walking down to the museum. They can walk downtown to our Christmas tree. They can walk downtown. From that location, Jared and his team doesn't have to spend hundreds of dollars on buses. They're in the middle of the town. They can walk to the art gallery. They can walk to the firefighters museum. So it's an incredible community resource available for us.